Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, on behalf of Refugee and Migratory Movements Research Unit, I welcome you all to its second symposium under the title Build Back Better, the series on COVID-19 and migration. And this is the second discussion that we are holding. The first one was on Bangladesh, somewhat similar issues, but we essentially focused on the unpaid wages and all that. Some of the issues perhaps we'll deal during this discussion. Why we titled it Return, Repatriation, and Deportation. Return, yes, migrants are coming back. Many are coming back due to panic. They're doing it voluntarily. Some have finished their contract and would have come anyway. There is this talk of repatriation, and although repatriation, covers both forcible and voluntary, the emphasis on deportation, we have put it here, mainly because, it's not as benign as a normal repatriation would be. It is, to a large extent, we see that the forcible return, that's also taking place. Having said that, I'm not suggesting that voluntary return is not taking place. It is. But we are concerned about, forced repatriation, the way criminals, terrorists, the undesired and others are repatriated. And we should remind ourselves, the people who are now being sort of meant to be sent back. And it's not the concern of us, the a few of us, academics and others. It's also, UN Network on Migration, they have also expressed the same point, that it's likelihood that there will be forcible return. And therefore we must be, we need to act on this, and we need to, how we sort of stop this, or at least make it more dignified, or bring about changes, suggest policy measures, do advocacy work, remind ourselves what needs to be done to uphold the dignity of migrants and their rights. So the bottom line is, there is anecdotal evidence, surely in Bangladesh, and that's what we came across during the last meeting, that element of coercion was there. There was a complete lack of voluntariness. And these people, and this is the point that I was trying to make, these people have all gone with valid visa. In most circumstances have gone with valid visa and through the procedure. So they are not illegal immigrants in the way that generally it's perceived to be, that they have to be deported. That's the bottom line that I'm talking about. And it becomes much more bare or very obvious when threats are made by the destination countries, at least a few, where they link it up with that if you don't take back your workers, and then we will, future workers we won't take from your country. So this is the most, and this is completely what our foreign minister said. It is unfortunate, and it's a breach of diplomatic protocols. So this is exactly the type of things we would like to discuss today. We have given you some points earlier. Feel free not to engage with them or anything that you deem fit. Essentially it builds on our previous sort of discussion that we had. And in that, allow me to say that, there have been cases where we found evidence that people even produced, those who are in, and this is absolutely a small sample, 50 people, no methodologically not very sound, but it only gives you an idea, a whole range of problems that they encountered. And I'll just say one instance where, the person provided with the documents, he has money at home, even then he was picked up and taken to detention centers. And on an average, what we came across is 20 days, around 20 days they were there. So what they claimed that, they're sending my people in jail and detention for their safety does not appear to be valid, at least not from the cohort that we have come across. So these people have been randomly picked up. Most of them had genuine documents. So this is where the concern lie. We also, came across that, many of them have left wages there. And roughly on an average, it was about $2,000 that their companies either owed them and owed them. So these are some of the things. I'm not going to take long. So of course there is deficiency in protection when they are sending back workers. these are some of the problems that we have encountered. That was discussed in our seminar, and we'd like to really build up on that and discuss today, how we, what you call, listen to other country experiences. May not be the same or may be same. That's where we have tapped into this rich resource that we have got in the region. A few of the technical issues. Number one, if we kindly allow us to say 10 to 12 minutes each speaker, they would they would take time. And then we would urge, as I said, our Nepali colleagues to split the time between themselves as they went, deem fit. We have two eminent, we have got an eminent person, Dr. Piyasi Vikramasekaran, from whom we've learned a lot, and we continue to learn. And he has joined us, so I would really urge him to stay back if it's possible until the end of the session, so that he can, we can tap from him his wisdom. And we also have MFA. We'd like to have William Boyce of MFA, and he'll speak for 5 minutes soon after the keynote speakers have spoken. And as I was saying, the basic rule is, if the viewers have any questions, we would like to ask them to put it in writing and direct it to the person from whom they want answer. That would minimize me repeating the same question. And I would request the panelists not necessarily to stick to those. I mean, feel free to respond, or if not, because your priorities are your priorities. And in case we have some time left, then we'll ask people to show hand and take from the floor. And I'm not going to introduce people with their bios, rich bios. We have circulated that, so you're all aware of it. And so that's how it is. I mean, I'll not take any more. Now I will invite Dr. Jagannath Adhikari. He is based in Australia. Thank you for joining us. We understand it's rather late for you to join us. He is an academic of great repute, has published on Nepali migrant and other migration issues, had recent affiliation with ANU, University of New South Wales. And we have been working with Samran, EU, although it's not that active this long, and maybe time has come for us to again activate it. So having said that, Dr. Adhikari.
Thank you, Abrar. I have taken this as an learning opportunity because I'm staying in a rather developed country. I happened to come here before lockdown began in Nepal or in Australia. Our friend Ganesh would, he's in the front line in Nepal, helping the policymakers as well as the migrant, and planning their evacuation, help, repatriation, and different things. And they have also done some interviews with migrants, so I think that'll be more authentic. My experience here in Australia, because I've been talking to some Nepali migrants here, what they are feeling about lockdown and their job loss, and things like that. And the thing is, whenever there is a crisis, economic crisis or health crisis, migrants are here. Even though they have a lot of resources, migrants are the one they are blamed, and they are not given support. This thing I clearly noticed here when people lost jobs. Temporary migrants, I've seen Nepalese, but it applies to other countries. I've met some of my Indian friends who are working in companies. So the Australian citizen, resident, permanent residents, they are supported through different schemes like JobKeeper, so that the company will get money from government and they will pay to those people who lost the job. And the JobKeeper is not given to temporary migrants, even though they have valid visa. So discrimination is there. And then in case of student migrants, they were categorically told by the Prime Minister to leave the country if they can't afford themselves. So migrants here are experiencing discriminations, even though it may not be the kind of discrimination we see in like Gulf countries and others, but still there are discriminations. And the other information I get about Nepal is from reading newspapers and watching videos and other things. So people returning from India in the border, they have been facing a lot of problems. And then people in the Gulf are not able to return quickly. So I think Ganesh will take up these issues. So my point here is like this human rights violation of migrant workers, not confined in Asia only or in our countries, but the domestic labor migrant, because domestic labor migrant, like people going to villages from Kathmandu, I read that there are so many problems. So it's not only in Asia, this is a problem. Even in developed country, there is a big issue now. And in future, we don't know what will happen because they are looking inwards rather than outwards. So the whole process of globalization, I don't know what will happen. It will surely shrink. We have seen in America, like visas are not issued, and migrants have, I don't know, they are working. They are not sure of whether the visa will expand or not. No new migrant can go there right now. And then if the same political situation continues, I don't think there will be opportunities for the people to migrate. So this is the situation from developed countries. And whenever there is crisis, I've seen the migrants are the scapegoat, and they are going to suffer. And whenever this crisis becomes stricter and stricter, and then even in developed country, human rights violations starts to occur. So that's my experience, living experience here right now. So I think much more will come from Ganesh, I guess, because he's in the real ground level, and he knows a lot about it. I think I stop here, Abrar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. No, I think that's a very important point as well. So it's not necessarily restricted to a region. No, this a violation of basic sort of what you call the agreements that were there with the students, with the university and all that. So even in the developed world, I mean, the migrants are being sort of
that's what I've seen.
So I think that brings in a very different perspective, but very useful perspective when we discuss the region. Thank you so much. Now I invite our good old friend, Dr. Ganesh Gurung, the chair of sort of Nepal Institute of Development Studies, with whom we partnered for umpteen number of work, where Dr. Adhikari was also involved. And he was a former member of Nepal Planning Commission, Dr. Ganesh Gurung.
Thank you very much. Are you listening me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
okay.
And you may have 1 or 2 minutes more because he was running, he spared a few minutes. So
okay, thank you. Please stop me. Please stop me if I go.
That I certainly will. I have warned it, and because Rajan has threatened to walk out if it doesn't finish, within time. So
yeah. Thank you, Professor Abrar, for this opportunity. I will be very brief, but rather I will be raising the issue how we can share these different issues and learn from each other. So that will be interesting for us. So today is 94th day of a lockdown in Nepal. So as you know that we have 30 to 40 lakhs total migrants approximately, including in India, which sends 8.79 billion Nepali rupees every year to Nepal. This does not include the remittance coming from India. And as of today, there are 17,792 people infected in 35 countries in the world. Nepali people, in fact, I repeat, 17,792 migrants are infected in 35 countries. Out of that, 127 have died, and more than, but surprisingly, more than 1,000 have recovered, and they are also they are very good in a very good health condition. The return in today's topic, and the return of migrants in Nepal started from 16 February 2020. The first batch was brought from Wuhan of China, where the corona was originated, I believe. And these, interestingly, these people, 174 people were, all the cost was borne by Nepal government, and they were brought to Kathmandu and kept in quarantine. And that was the first lot brought. And these were the medical doctors, businessmen, and medical doctors who were doing their PhD or a master's degree in Wuhan city. So after 3 months only, the first lot, after that, first lot was brought to Nepal. But I would like to share you some of the issues that has raised in Nepal. The interesting issue is, we have a welfare fund. I think Sri Lankan Bureau has also the same. We have learned from them and designed accordingly. Every migrant worker going abroad should pay 1,500 Nepali rupees, almost $12, in the welfare fund. And that money is being used for this kind of emergency, dead body, injured, like this kind of thing. Now, interesting is, there is a big debate among us in Nepal is, there are people who have not paid this amount, and the Supreme Court has ordered to use that money, which is nearly 5.25 billion Nepali rupees, is laying there. So, as Supreme Court ordered to use that money, but the question is, what about those who have not paid there? They have not paid there, So, do we do equal treatment to those who have gone informally and not paid to a welfare fund, and those who have gone formally and paid to welfare fund? So there is a kind of a legality question here.
Dr. Ganesh, if I may just come in here, I mean, certainly this is very important and connected to repatriation. If you could, if there's any information about the treatment they are receiving in the destination countries, because we will certainly plan to have another about rehabilitation, about support and that kind of thing. So if you could, some idea about the experiences that they have narrated, if they have come back, and if you could share with those. Thank you.
After coming to Nepal?
In the countries of
destination, I couldn't listen to you.
In the countries of destination, before they were back, how they were treated, that
okay.
Is there,
okay. Let me go this way. Very interestingly, government has now realized that Nepali embassies abroad are not equipped in terms of finance, in terms of staff, in terms of providing the services. So the embassies have clearly said, we don't have that resources to cope on the situation here. So that's why the embassies are very weak in terms of providing the services, and they are also very afraid that they may transmit the COVID. So they have shut the door, and they are saying only contact through telephones, email, or a telephone.
How about the governments of those countries? You know, the kind of complaints that have concerns that have been expressed that, you know, about their treatment. There has been discrimination, very, you know, and also in sending back people, you know, without, even though they have.
I will come there.
Yeah, okay.
I'll come there. So first of all, the question is Nepali embassies itself. You know, the services Nepali embassies, migrant workers are more geared, and they want to get services from Nepali embassies. But the problem is a very weak services, number one. And number two is the destination government are, some governments are very, very helpful. They are providing that they will provide the tickets, and they are also providing, they have made some camps to keep the migrant workers. And furthermore, they have also wrap up on the penalty that they have to pay in terms of visa. And some countries have even, they were in the jail, the remaining period of staying in the jail is also waived. So some countries are very, very friendly, migrant friendly, and they are saying, you get this, you get this, you get this if you go back. But because of Nepali embassies are very weak there, and the transportation has not taken place, they were still there. That is a problem, right? So so far, the destination countries, some of the destination countries are also providing, assuring that those who are going now, if they want to come back, they will provide the job when it resumes. That kind of cooperation is also provided there. So these are the an interesting part in destination country is when there is a destination government and a Nepali embassy, there was no breeze between them. So interesting part is one NGO called a non-resident Nepali association. You know, in India you call it a diaspora, something like that. You know, they have in every country they have their branch, and this organization is becoming very, very helpful to bridge between the embassy and the government there, because these non-resident Nepali association people are a bit higher up, and they are engineers or doctors,
Sure.
or they have a good paid job, so they are doing so. So far, 6,000 migrant workers are brought back to Nepal, and there a few more are on the way. So a big question is who will pay this expensive charter flight fee? That is a big question. So I will raise some issue, and I will also tell how we are doing here in Nepal.
Yeah, if you could, we need to sort of, yeah, if you could.
Okay, number one issue, that is isolation and quarantine centers have become the transmitting center for Nepali migrant workers. When they come back and they stay there, and that is a place, earlier they didn't have a disease, but during quarantine they have a problem. And Nepal is using the school, colleges, and hotels as a quarantine. And another issue is that another issue is whether these migrant workers are coming from these different countries, they should be tested before.
Okay, I think the line. I'll switch off.
Uh,
Ganesh, you are breaking up. So
they land to the plane. They get worker tested because of a virus. I don't know. Are you listening me?
yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, please, yeah.
Okay, so I have only two issue, three issue. I will tell, then I will close it. But what is interesting thing that we should know is, since in migration there is a hierarchy, the poorest of the poor group who migrate are the hardest hit. This means those migrant workers, Nepali workers coming from India are hardest hit. And they were the one who did not get any kind of services in the border area. That is the next issue. And the next issue is a psychological situation of migrant workers and their families. And this is not considered in the government system. And finally, as Abrar has said, Abu Dhabi process and Colombo process were not any helpful in this process of negotiation on behalf of the Nepal government to the destination government. It was not helpful. I can understand it is not a mandatory process. And I would also remind that we have in 18th SAARC meeting, the SAARC conference, it has decided to have a collective bargaining. There is a strong point that all the head of the states have decided, but nothing worked on. So lastly, Nepal has created stays in this repatriation, holding centers. I think many other SAARC countries have not done it. This holding center is once you come from airport and Nepal government takes them to a place until they get bus ride or until they are taken back to their place where quarantine is arranged. So Nepal has made this a new one step called one day holding center, which is handled by a Nepal army. I would like to stop here.
Thank you, Ganeshji, for this very, very important sort of statement that you made. My takeaway from here is, we cannot generalize the experiences. There are employers or there are countries which are trying to put in effort, some good things for sure. We duly note that. The other point is with regard to wage earners welfare fund, and that's the debate we have in here as well. To what extent? Because that's an easy recourse for the government, just to take the money and dispense it. But in Bangladesh, generally the civil society is slightly wary about that. And what they have done is they're asking for the government to put in sort of mechanisms in place where they don't have to take money, but allocate from its own budget. And that's because at the end of the day, this is a finite amount that's there. And this is a crisis moment. All along, migrants stood up for the country when opportunities in times of crisis. This is one time when crisis has broken out where they cannot, they are in a dire strait. So the nation owes it to them. As a result, they need to be supported, and not from the wage earner welfare fund. That's the debate we are here. My final takeaway point from yours is what important role that the non-residents Nepali associations play. I'm not too sure whether you meant also in the Gulf states, because to the best of my knowledge, also there.
Yes.
So allow this kind of association to officially function. Oh, fair enough. So that's also a takeaway, that that can be an important, avenue to provide support, redress to the migrants. Thank you very much. Now our next speaker, eminent speaker, is Mr. L.K. Ruhunage, who is, labor migration in his DNA, as they say it, and again, a person of great sort of experience. And he was a former additional general manager of Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Labor Employment, and a lot to learn from him. And now I invite Mr. Ruhunage to sort of shed light on this issue. Thank you. I think you have to unmute yourself, Mr. Ruhunage.
All right, thank you. First of all, I must thank Dr. Abrar for organizing this discussion actually at a very timely, important issue of this labor migration and impact out of this COVID-19 on that. So when Sri Lanka is considered, the first COVID-19 patient was detected in the middle of March, and thereafter numbers climbed up gradually. And our yesterday figures showed there were 1,980 positive cases, out of which 1,550 have already recovered, so the 78%. So this is a very satisfactory status as far as the most of the other countries are concerned. And we have only 11 deaths reported so far as a result of the virus. The notable and regrettable factor in this virus contracted persons, the cases in our country are about 50% of them it's consisted with this Navy soldiers who have gone behind these virus affected people and families to bring them to quarantine center. So still some of the Navy officers are in the hospitals getting treatment for their illnesses. So other cluster in the affected patients is the people, the migrant workers who return from countries like Kuwait, then Italy, Dubai, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, still, Sri Lanka did not seriously involved with repatriation process. So the government said priority should be given to bring the students and various other Sri Lankan stranded there on the basis of travelers, and then the people who went on pilgrimage, and then those who went for training programs, and etc. etc. So the ground priority concern was to bring these people, and now they are planning to bring the West Asian or the other stations, I mean, stranded Sri Lankan migrant workers. I mean, we can see in the next week or so the arrival of these stranded workers. But basically, in the very initial stage, some Sri Lankan migrant workers return from countries like Korea, UAE, and Kuwait. I mean, that is why the Kuwait one is, I mean, little bit problematic. Where, I mean, we got about 450 odd returnees thanks to the mercy flights supplied by the Kuwait government. But out of this 450 odd crowd, about 412 contracted the virus after arrival in Sri Lanka. I mean, that is when they were undergoing this quarantine exercise. So then the government had a little, I mean, thought that the migrant workers should be handled very carefully, because sometimes they may be carriers to the country, the virus. So that is why, I mean, the quarantine centers are to be expanded, the medical facilities are to be expanded before they bring here. So that is why the government is now considering all these have been improved, and the migrant workers will be repatriated as early as possible. That was the decision very recently taken. The thing is, reports from the Sri Lanka missions, meantime, disclosed that there are about 40,000 Sri Lankans lined up in various destination countries seeking repatriation to Sri Lanka. So the thing is, some of the other countries also, I think, adopted the similar measure. I mean, ask the migrant workers who wish to come to their home countries to get first registration at the concerned diplomatic missions. Likewise, the Sri Lanka also adopted the mechanism, and we got right now about registration numbers, say about 40,000, ranging from 10,000 from Qatar to some 19,000 in Kuwait. Likewise, the thing is, yesterday when I mean, talked to some officers at the bureau, we got to know that about 200 to 300% daily visit by consulate for registering purposes seeking repatriation. So this is kind of a very terrible exercise, and still the embassies are open and the people, the staff is engaged. The thing is, even 4 Sri Lankan diplomatic officers are contracted the virus in Abu Dhabi, Sri Lanka embassy. So the embassy was forced to close for about 5 days because of the escalation of this virus among the staff of the embassies. So then we get information from various sources about general situation of these destination countries as far as the workers are concerned. But some of the countries like the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and these countries have declared some new policies, to shape the situation and also to address the issues of migrant workers. So now we got to know that the UAE government has adopted the policy where, they allowed employers to make kind of amendments to the existing service contracts of migrant workers, allowing some kind of deductions from salaries and various other factors. I can mention these things. Food return is under mandatory kind of a deduction of salary, say ranging from 20 to 50%. And then some workers have been put on compulsory leave. Some have been asked to take their leave and maybe stay at home and do work. And likewise, they have adopted various measures. Some measures are not very favorable for migrant workers. If actually the salaries are deducted or salaries are declined, that will greatly affect to their stay in that country as well as dependent on them. So in one case, I got to know a Sri Lankan technician who earned about 1,500 dirhams in Sharjah. Was his salary was reduced to 650 dirhams later during the pandemic. So likewise, and some people have lost their employment or some goods. We know a lot of there are a lot of runaways also, and those runaways have lost, most of runaways lost their jobs in Kuwait, and then this has become another burden to the embassy because they are out. They don't have travel documents, legal travel documents, and the embassy has to provide them with temporary passports and other facilities to travel back home. And this is also a process going on right now in some of these embassies. So then, as far as the Sri Lankan services are concerned, I have to mention that transfers of the government is towards migrant workers are, now beginning really very seriously, because the thing is now Sri Lanka is facing to a general election in August. So then this has now become not only a migrant issue, but a political issue also in this country. Opposition parties blamed frequently the government for delaying of repatriation of migrant workers, but the government is now saying, no, we are going to bring them as early as possible, provided the air travel is established and also the quarantine centers are more expanded and the medical facilities are expanded. But anyhow, we can expect their arrival in coming days, as there shall be, if you also make kind of a statement that they are going to be in them. And only thing is, we can't expect all these 40,000 to come in a week or two, like what we did when the Kuwait invasion by Iraq in 1990-1991 period, where we brought 100,000 Sri Lankans within 3 months. But this time, that cannot be done because of the restrictions of the air travel. But anyhow, the government will make kind of a efforts. And also other than this repatriation process, the Sri Lanka government is trying to get them tested before their departure from the destination countries. So far the negotiations are successful with regard to our people in Bahrain, then UAE, and also Lebanon. The governments, these governments agree to provide kind of pre-testing before departure of them, then to ensure that there are no carriers of the virus, as we experienced earlier when the Kuwait batch came. So the other thing is coordination and taking actions of repatriation of workers with close collaboration of SLBFE, Ministry of External Affairs, then the airlines, Presidential Secretariat, and missions are working very smoothly right now. So the expanding of consular assistance, also a measure that the government has taken in addressing the the present issue of migrant workers. Then returnees under mandatory quarantine process. So this is a mandatory process in the government-run centers. 44 such centers are reported to have been in the island-wide locations. Then besides quarantine available at these centers, facilities have been provided at hotels. So for the people who can afford to stay them these places and pay the money, hotel fees. I mean, most of these affluent people stay at these place hotels and then got the quarantine certificates after 14 days and they go home. So other government centers are managed by the tribe forces. So then entertaining complaints of returnees by the SLBFU also now is there. The process is there. When I checked with the Bureau yesterday, they said special desks are available to entertain their complaints, and most of the family members come in for the sake of the migrant workers to lodge their complaints regarding returns, because most of the returns are still undergoing quarantine exercise. So then the providing insurance benefits to those death cases. I mean, we have 23 death cases reported overseas due to this coronavirus, and 1,700 affected people are also there in the countries of destination. Something all these 23 people provided, they have insurance coverage. I mean, prior to SLBFE, prior to departure from Sri Lanka to their ventures, then they are surely assured for providing death compensation to their family members. Then assessment of immediate welfare needs of return is also a process now being undertaken by the SLBFE for future program preparations and any ground assistance. The thing is, here now the government, the Bureau is facing kind of a difficulty in providing this monetary and other material facilities of the assistance because of the general election, which the commission, the general election, I mean, there's a rule under the election ordinance, and you can't provide them material, so monetary awards during an election period. Because if the government is ignorant like this, then somebody can point out this is a violation of election rules and regulations. Therefore, the SLBA, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or a government authority, has to be very careful in providing these things other than providing kind of physical assistance. So this issue also is there when Sri Lanka situation is concerned. So then I'm not taking much time. Then if we talk about this RCPs, I think needs have arisen to RCPs and other global forums, as well as processes like GMC, reschedule and remodel their migrants-oriented policies and programs accordingly. And we know the Colombo process and the Abu Dhabi dialogue and this global forum of, also are coming up next year, early next year, in the station like Afghanistan and UAE. So now the organizers, the members have to reschedule the agenda to address the issues of these migrant workers affected by COVID-19. Then lastly, I would like to mention some of the proposals that I can submit for Sri Lankan situation, that we know that as of my Nepali colleague also mentioned, there's a welfare fund covered all these migrant workers, it's kind of a compulsory scheme. So, I mean, the migrant workers must be educated on what they can earn, what they can get out of this welfare funds for the time being. I mean, who have been affected by the virus. Most of them do not know, other than those people who have death cases, what kind of assistance they can obtain from the welfare fund maintained by the SLBFP. And also, I have a proposal that the government, the Sri Lanka government, not only Sri Lanka government, the other governments also can make a proposal to destination countries that there, since there are a lot of unemployed, or I mean jobless people now due to this pandemic, the authorities, government authorities at that countries must cooperate and assist them in finding suitable other ventures, other jobs. Now, for the time being, the Qatar embassy has put up an advertisement yesterday in their web page saying that 100 jobs they have found in a cleaning company for those affected people, I mean, of this COVID-19. So the people, they I mean, invite Sri Lankans to register or apply for that 100 jobs where they already found after negotiations with the leading cleaning company in Qatar. Likewise, the embassy staff not only providing consular assistance, but they can now try to find out some kind of employment for these distressed people or the destitute, I mean, who lost their jobs, who wish to change their employment to better ventures. So with this brief note, I would now conclude, and thank you very much for providing this opportunity, Dr. Abrar.
And thank you, Mr. Ruhunage. I think very, very important points. Again, in brief, my takeaway, I think reduction of salary to the tune of 20 to 50%, you know, that's a huge sum we are talking about. And certainly in Bangladesh, people pay, you know, huge sums of money, they incur debt with the hope they'll be able to recover by doing extra work and that kind of thing. So that would offset all their sort of accounts in the calculations in this respect. The other issue is runaway workers. You know, I mean, what made them run away? And this is, again, as they say, as Rajan said that very persuasively, and I'm taking it from him. And he said that COVID-19 has actually brought to the fore the problems that were there. And runaway workers, these are runaway workers. There's hardly any chance for people to actually go from South Asian countries through irregular channel and be there. So they obviously, in most cases, they have gone through proper documentation. Circumstances force them, not all, but certainly a good number of them were forced by the circumstances, particularly the kafil system, being mistreated, not being paid, you know, and some actually were sponsored by visa traders. They don't have work, but they bring in people, you know, and make money out of them. So I think those are some of the issues that needs to be taken into account when countries brand them as runaway workers. Well, our country should actually stand up to check, to double check. So each and every return, I would think, should be following due procedure to assess these things. That's and the third issue, I think very important, that great to know, the Sri Lankan Civil Aviation authorities or the government has negotiated that they have to pay for the test before they come back. And if that is the true, I think that's music to our ears. But unfortunately, in our case, as I know, the information that I have is that the government has made that workers coming back does not need to have the test. Foreigners who come to Bangladesh need to have the test. So in a way, you know, I think there's a huge question of bargaining with the countries of this. Okay, if you're sending workers back, make sure that they pay, make sure that you conduct the tests free of charge, only then we will take them back. I think these are some of the lessons It may sound easy, but it's a difficult task. That's where I would say our yardstick. And my final point is the whole question of insurance. Well thought out, designed insurance program certainly helps. But if it's done in a hurried way, as has been done in some instances, then perhaps it may defeat the purpose. I will stop there. Thank you, Mr. Ruhunage. Now it's my right to invite Professor Nasra Shah of Lahore School of Economics. And the CV is there, but I'll just put one thing that, many years ago, when Just RMMRU started its work, we heard about her, we invited her, and she was gracious enough to fly all the way from Kuwait to join our humble effort. And that was at the beginning. And I recall with a lot of admiration. And after many years, I invited her and she took up our offer. Thank you ever so much, Professor Shah. We look forward to hear you.
Well, unmute. It is indeed a pleasure to be at RMMRU and to see that it has grown so much. So, unfortunately, we meet at a time of crisis, but hopefully our deliberations provide at least some policy guidelines to help make things better. So what I'm going to do for the next 10 or whatever minutes I have is to focus on 3 points. First of all is and I'm going to focus on workers, returning migrant workers. So let me begin by noting, first of all, that to sort out the workers from the rest of the returnees is not an easy task. Because what's happening in the case of Pakistan, and as came up in the earlier discussions, is that there are people in various categories that are being brought back. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So what types of people? So in terms of numbers, in the case of Pakistan, about 200,000, and this mostly I'm getting from newspaper reports and press conferences, because this is a priority area for the government to arrange for the return of, quote, stranded workers. And they may be stranded, maybe workers and others. But among them, the workers are a priority for the government. So in terms of Pakistan, an estimated 200,000 citizens were still stranded overseas as of June 17th, 2020. And I think that's a kind of an underestimate. So these stranded persons include various categories, such as those in a transit visa situation, those whose visit visas had expired, students, and that came up earlier, as well as workers. And along with workers, some of them have their families with them. So it was announced that by the government that as of June 18th, more than 75,000 Pakistanis had been repatriated since the airspace reopened on April 3rd. And currently it's estimated that there are approximately 98,000 people who wish to return, plus 100,000 students. Okay, where are these stranded workers? In the case of Pakistan, the Gulf is the biggest region. Among the Gulf, 2 countries, UAE and Saudi Arabia, are the major recipients. And in terms of skill level, about 50% of the workers who go to the Gulf are in low-skilled or unskilled categories. So what's the way the process is being handled is that whoever wants to return registers at the embassy. So in the case of UAE, so as of early May, about 60,000 Pakistanis had registered to return. Okay, and so I expect that this number would have grown, and I've also seen numbers like 100,000. It's surprising that I have not seen very much data on Saudi Arabia. And I would like to ask the other panelists if that is their observation also. So among the workers, so next I want to talk about the types. So who are these stranded workers? How do they become stranded? Okay, first of all, the employer fired them post-COVID. Okay, and or is not willing to renew their work visa, even though in some cases the destination country has allowed extensions of visas, but the employer may not be willing to do so. Second, those who were residing in the host country on an expired visa. So now this is the largest, one of the largest categories of the overstayers. Now, also a typical example of this would be workers who are employed by someone other than the sponsor. This is unlawful, as all of us know, and this puts people in an unlawful situation, but it's widespread and common. And finally, those who had arrived the country on some kind of a visit visa and their papers were being processed when the COVID happened. Okay, one category that I want to highlight is that of irregular workers. And this again came up already. Now, but one thing that has not been emphasized so far is that of the declaration of amnesties, by the announcement of amnesties by at least 3 Gulf countries, namely Kuwait, the UAE, and Bahrain. And if any of you, and I've been looking for information on Saudi Arabia, but as far as I know, they did not announce an amnesty. Now, an amnesty basically is to allow irregular persons to leave without paying penalties. So that right away, what that implies and what tells you is that this is an effort to speed up, I think, the exodus of those in an irregular situation. And of course, there are all kinds of human rights issues involved in that. Next, let me talk about the way that the Pakistan government is trying to manage this situation. Like the other Southeast Asian countries, the migrant workers are recognized as heroes by the sending government. And so it is a priority, as I said, for the government to bring back the stranded workers. So the National Assembly, for example, was informed by the concerned minister on June 16th that the national carrier PIA had brought back 56,846 stranded Pakistanis through 285 flights from over 60 countries. Now, not just the Gulf, but from over 60 countries. Okay, now, while the government has expressed support for bringing back stranded workers, it has also registered a concern about the high percentage of patients who had tested positive for the COVID infection among the returnees. Now that is a cause for concern. And we heard the same thing from Sri Lanka, and I've seen that in the newspapers also. So while the international protocol requires that workers should be tested and treated before being sent back, the extent to which such protocols are being followed by the host countries is really unclear. Statements have been issued in terms of wages and so on. Statements have been issued by the Pakistan government, where it seems that they've been advocating with the host countries to ensure the payment of workers' salaries and dues before being sent back. Now, the effectiveness of such advocacy remains to be evaluated. And I have personally not so far had the chance to talk to any workers who've returned in order to establish this. But one of my recommendations, of course, would be that the government, and I've made this recommendation to the concerned authorities, that when returnees come and when they are in earlier they were being put in quarantine for a minimum of 3 days, and very early on they were being put in quarantine for 14 days. But then resources do not permit for this to continue when lots of people are coming back. So then, now here I want to turn back to the situation of the irregular workers. In case of the irregular workers, it's kind of difficult for the sending country government to plead too loudly or too strongly for the payment of salaries. In the case of people who had absconded or run away and were in shelters already. So who do you plead with? So that's a fairly problematic situation. Okay, and then I was going to, well, we can come back to the implications for Pakistan in terms of its impacts on household incomes, poverty, and all of that when we get to the discussion. But let me just make one comment on the bilateral efforts such as the Colombo process and the Abu Dhabi dialogue. So in terms of these processes, okay, I'm not very optimistic because the reason I say that is that there are many meetings have been going on for years. Colombo processes, I think, started in 2003. And so far, personally, I have not seen much joint action by the sending countries to really establish a common front for safeguards of workers' rights or ensuring of wages or ensure health and or other protection of other rights. So, and also these processes are really not set up, they're not designed to manage emergencies such as the COVID epidemic. So I don't see, although, I mean, someone suggested that in the forthcoming meetings, this should be on the agenda of these agencies. Yes, I agree. But we shouldn't get our hopes too high. So those are some of the comments that I wanted to make. So let me stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shah. Very, very important points. Again, my takeaway, you mentioned about the disconnect between the decisions that the states are taking. Some of them are perhaps very well-meaning, but employers not really, putting it through. And it's not only with regard to the visa expiry issue that you have mentioned, also what we hear from our sources in our friends in Singapore and in Malaysia, whatever little support the government had extended for the workers are not really getting their way through to the workers, migrant workers. So there is an issue in those countries in such situations as well. Amnesty, you're absolutely right. We should not be very thrilled about amnesty. Again, I would come back to this point that many of us are mostly concerned. What made them irregular? That needs to be looked into. You just can't fill up people with planes and bring them as have they gone through your own legal procedure? Those are some of the things I think we need to keep asking, and that's important. That without penalty, and that's inducement. As fishing is done, someone is fishing, you induce and you take that. I think you rightly said to speed up exodus. So that important. And the question of international protocols, yes, I think, and regional processes. I guess when the rod factories, cement factories, they say theirs is the best. The only time you can test is when there is earthquake, and to check whether these processes are functioning. The fancy, global sort of institutions, where I think this is the earthquake. What they are doing right now, I think that's something that needs to be sort of, it's laying bare that inefficacy of some of these institutions. I'll stop there. Now, you all know him, no introduction, one and only Professor Rajan.
Yeah, Professor Abrar, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we do.
Thanks, Abrar, for the introduction, and I'm glad I'm seeing at least 73 people are listening to us. I just want to start with a statement. I think this Abu Dhabi dialogue, what is called this Colombo process, all of us, countries of origin, countries of destination, all have failed to protect migrants. It's something very, very important. Everybody failed to protect them. I think they are on the roads. So I think that is what I want to make a statement. Everybody has failed them, and because everybody was not looking for them anyway, they were looking for their money anyway. So the money is not there now. I think it's like a very sad situation, like when the cow is giving milk, everybody will look after the cow. Then they know the cow is not going to give milk, but then what is the use of the cow anyway? I think it's a very serious issue on the part of not just the international organization. Everybody failed them. I think this is something we should write home. We all failed. Even migration researchers, migration organizations, migration experts, everyone has failed them, and they are in the road, and we are also responsible for that. We never talked for them. It's like, it is happening to them. I think something very serious one, I am talking to everywhere I am talking about them. India failed its migrants. Similarly, maybe all countries failed its migrants. I think it's something to open up. The second point or something important is that whatever we are seeing them, it was there. What were the situation in pre-COVID? They were like that, living in the slums, living in the camps, not paid salaries, undocumented migrants, women workers, recruitment cost. It's not something which is new to us. It is only, so I am very grateful to COVID, because COVID has brought the limelight of migration. That is something very important. Otherwise, I don't, these all problems were there. For example, Nasra was studying migration for so many years. Everything was there. It is not something was not there. We know that they were all there. They were contributing money. We know that. So it is something COVID has brought to the limelight the migrants. Otherwise, it's all problems, whatever we discussed today. Deportation, return migration, amnesty, undocumented workers, women issues, all are there. I think this is something we should know. They are there in the pre-COVID, and COVID, it has been aggravated, and then post-COVID, again, back to business again. The same problem will continue. Recruitment costs will continue. Everybody will exploit them, because the migrants is the one being exploited by everyone. Banks, airways, employer, everyone is exploited the migrant, and they will continue to do that. I think it's something we know that. The third point is even number. Which country has a correct number about how many are there? How many are there? We don't know how many are there. Your citizens, Indians in Abu Dhabi, or Sri Lankans in Qatar. We all talk about some number. Many times we don't have the correct number. First of all, even the what is called the stock of our migrants. I was talking with the Indian government, some discussion. They were telling me 9 million. I said no. You will have at least 10 million, because I have done a survey in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Kerala and Tamil Nadu itself having close to 4 million migrants in the country. That means the 2 states are account for 4 million. The remaining 25 states and 7 UTs are only 6 million. No, there is something wrong. So we don't have any basic data. But my estimate is that we are expecting in India at least 15% of the migrants will come back. At least 15 lakhs people will come back to India. We are expecting at least 3 lakhs to Kerala. So 15% of the migrants will come back, and 10 to 15% remittances also will come down. World Bank says 23%. I think it is too high, but I would put maybe 15% of the remittances will come back. So remittances will decline by 15%. Return migration will increase by 15%. The problem is return migration is there. We all know return migration is not. This is not a new phenomenon. Return migration is a constant phenomenon if you go to that. If you go to Gulf, you have to come back. Nasra has come back to Pakistan. Holding an American passport. But now she was in the Gulf, she's come back. So I think everybody will come back. I don't think, even you die there, they'll send you a dead body back to your own country. So I think there is no PR system. So we all know anybody goes to Gulf, pre-departure, work in the Gulf and come back. So coming back is not something new. We have seen people are coming back. I have seen in my own state in Kerala, we have 15 lakh return migrants, 1.5 million return migrants pre-COVID. And we have 6 MLAs in the assembly. In the assembly, they are holding MLAs because the return migrants can contest elections. So I think very important that this is a normal phenomenon. So they are coming back. But now we have also seen they are coming back earlier. We have seen the Gulf War. People came back. We know that. We have seen the global crisis. People came back. We have seen Nidakat 2 years back. People came back. So it is not something we have not seen. We have seen people are coming back. And then they'll go back after a few months. So, but compared to the earlier incidents like a Gulf War or global crisis or Nidakat, you are going to get this time little more return migrants. That's all. Little more return migrants. That is something we should keep in mind. So it is not like the migration is going to come to an end. No, there will be new corridors. There will be new demand for migration, including to USA. Donald Trump can say that I am going to stop the P1 visas. He himself will go after 3 months. So I think we should not worry too much on policies. So I don't think we should worry too much, push about this migration problems. I think we'll have new corridors, new sectors, and new countries. For example, I'm seeing in Kerala people are going to Africa. I told them where are you going? No, Gulf. We are going to Africa. We are going to construct engineering college in Africa. So I think people will go. There are many new areas going to come up, new sectors. Another point which I would like to make is that it is not that we don't have money. Return migrants can be brought by free flights. They can be put free quarantine for 14 days. We can do that. But we are not talking about them because they are not in their mind. Because every country we are sitting here, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, we have many things to do. We have not organized COVID very well. Now everybody is talking about it. Did you do really well by the 90-day lockdown, 40-day lockdown? I think what did you achieve? Nothing you achieved. India is leading now as a 4th country in the world with global COVID infections. I'm sure it will be 4th rank after a few days, then maybe 3rd rank, then maybe 2nd rank. So, what did you do? So we had a lockdown for so many days, but what is the impact? Nothing. Now we had say 4 lakhs. You would have done the lockdown, we would have had 10 lakhs. So what? Nothing. 10 lakhs what? So what? I think we all have suddenly what is called the panic. Like the migrants are getting panic to come back to their country, because I talked to some of the migrants. Sir, we don't want to die in Dubai. We want to come and die in our families in my country, Kerala. So people are running to come. Kerala government started a registration. Anybody want to come? Immediately, Kerala government, they got 500,000 people want to come back. Because there is a panic buying, like a panic. We all buy sometimes panic. We know that there is a lockdown is going to come. You go and buy extra rice, extra milk, extra bread, same thing. There is a panic. People want to come because COVID has no passport. COVID has no visa. It is traveling everywhere. COVID has passport? No. COVID has no passport. It has no visa. It travels. It is undocumented. It is documented. We don't know. So COVID is traveling globally, and you can't stop them. But you want to stop migrants. How can it be possible? If the COVID can move globally, migrants also can move. So you cannot stop them. Like COVID is moving from America to Europe, Europe to Africa, Africa to India, like that. China to India. So like that, COVID also like moving. Migrants will move. They may move out of Gulf after some time. But I think, so we don't need to worry too much about them, but they have been treated fairly. Now what we are doing, for example, I am sitting in Kerala. I think government has to recognize them, because the point is that we have to recognize their existence. Which country in sitting here talk about migration in their planning policy? In India, our Prime Minister talked about 20 lakh crore on self-reliant economy. Not even a single word about return migration. What I will do, what you will do. So they are not there. They are not there in the mind of our policy makers. Who should pay for them the quarantine? Somebody was asking me, sir, when they were sending money, they were sending to Kerala government, they are sending their wives and children. Now you are telling me we have to pay for them. Why? Did any migrant send money to Kerala government? Indian government? No, they were sending money to their families, their wives. They are building a big house. They are putting the children in outside the country. So now you are saying that please pay their train airfare. Why? So this is the reality. When you tell them you pay them train fare, airfare, why you should pay airfare? Somebody was telling me, sir, we are bringing them flight. What is called India started a new flight. You might heard about Vande Bharat flights. We are bringing the people who are stranded. So there was a talk that they should be paid what is called a ticket free. Government said no. We can't. We will charge them. If they want to come, we have to charge them. And then we told them, please bring the pregnant women. And they said that they went. They went to see their family members. They went on their own. Now they want to come. We'll bring them. But why should we pay for them? Why should we pay for the children who went to see their mother in the Gulf? Or why should we want to pay the old parents who went to see their son? They were paid by their children. Why you are asking now to pay? So government said no payment. Kerala cannot do because Kerala is part of India. There is no Kerala passport. We have only Indian passport. Am I right? So Kerala government, what they can do? They said, okay, we'll provide you when you come back. We'll give you what is called the quarantine facilities. We will give them, if you need some support, we'll do that. That's what we can do. So because the state cannot take up much interest. It has to come from the central government. So we have to talk about them. We have to talk about their issues. And finally, we are expecting now there will be more people come, not just because COVID, but also because of the amnesty. I talked to some people who were, when the amnesty was going on earlier, I was asking them, why you are not going? There's an amnesty. They said, no, I will wait for the next amnesty. People don't come, especially from our countries, because they will say amnesty will come after 3 years. What I will do in Bangladesh, what I will do in India, sir, why should I come back? There is no job, even for our own people in my own country. So they want to continue. But now, the COVID season, all of them might come back. So we are going to get the additional return migration. I think this is something we have to look at it. And finally, I want to what is also something which we are not talking about is the employers in the Gulf many people want to come. In the panic, in the process, they are losing their left salaries. The employers in the Gulf are what is called the daylight robbery of the poor migrants' wages. I call them daylight robbery. It is happening in my own country with the internal migrants. I talked to some migrants in Kerala. Why you are not going? There's a free train ticket. He said, no, if I go, who will give me the salaries there? So it's like a daylight robbery of our own citizens' blood. See, I call them blood money. I never call remittances. It's a blood money because they are sweating their blood in the 50 degree. I know the climate in Gulf. Because I'm sitting in a place where God's own country. The climate is very good, but they are going to work there. They are squeezing their blood. And this is being, I think this is something serious one. And another one which I also want to talk about, what our missions are doing. Why cannot the missions in the Gulf countries, all the missions in South Asian countries sit together and how to protect their migrants? What are they doing? Nobody is asking them. We are not asking our embassies. They have different jobs. But this is one of their jobs. They are holding Indian passport. They are holding Pakistani passport. Whom they are waiting for? Why can't the embassies, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the ambassadors in the Gulf, sit together and talk? What we can do? Because what is going to happen to Indian migrants, definitely going to happen to the Pakistanis, Bangladesh, someday maybe much worse. Everybody thinks we are safe. No, everybody is not safe. Like today I was talking to somebody, I got a message from Gulf. They said, sir, please don't take people who have a COVID from Gulf to Kerala, but at least take the people who are non-COVID, so that we will not get COVID, because we are living in a condition, it is no social distancing. Please remember. So I think, what are you doing? Indian embassies, our embassies. So I think there is nobody has any interest on COVID. Anyway, COVID has come and COVID will go, maybe not this year, maybe next year. COVID-19 we are talking about, maybe COVID-20 will come, maybe COVID-21. Like, we talk about 5-year plans. So next year they'll say COVID-21, I don't know. So COVID is not going to leave us. I don't think COVID will go, because it is going in such a way, it is not going to leave us. And everybody is confusion and everybody say lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. And it is affecting only migrants. I am not able to move from Trivandrum district to another district in Kerala. They say lockdown, hotspot. What is hot? I don't know. And I asked somebody, did you see COVID anywhere? No. If you know them, you would have already bombed them. So it is almost like a third world war situation in the globally. I have not seen the first world war. I am seeing third world war, which is COVID. Every country is fighting for themselves. Normally world will be two groups. One group will be against other. But this time, COVID has brought everybody is fighting for themselves. America is fighting for themselves. We are fighting. Everybody wants to control COVID. I think COVID you cannot control. I told somebody who want to make COVID RIP, rest in, I told them, COVID has already put 500,000 people RIP, rest in peace. He already made 500 people RIP throughout the world. It will put another 500,000 people RIP. Then only it will be happy. So you want to stop COVID and then move? No. Basically, COVID is a movement of migration. Everybody today, this is the first time I'm seeing in Kerala.
Rajan,
people are coming back. I'm going to close it. People are coming back without any money. Returned migrants are coming back with empty-handed. Never in the history, migrants will come back with empty-handed. They used to bring gifts, not only for their families, their neighbor, their uncle, their auntie. They are coming back without anything. And then they also have a stigma. Coming from Dubai, COVID. Coming from Dubai, Saudi Arabia, COVID. So you are giving them double burden. And some of them are going to commit suicide. I'm seeing already in India. I think, what are we talking about? And some family, I talked to them in Kerala. They are sending money from Kerala to Dubai to look after their children. Reverse remittances, we never talk. We always get money from Saudi Arabia to Kerala, Saudi Arabia to Pakistan. Did we any talk about money going back to them to look after them? We are talking about that. I think it's a very serious affair. But anyway, at the end of the story is, short-term migrants will suffer. Long-term, they will win. And the long-term, maybe not this year, maybe 2021. I'll stop here, Professor Abrar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajanji. Again, very quickly, my takeaways. One, you talked about the various processes, regional and global, and we do hope our governments take those into consideration and rethink about the efficacy of these institutions, how they can reshape them to making it meaningful for the workers. You mentioned about lack of data, very, very important, and that's across the board. That is a problem. On irregular migration, my 1 minute is, irregular. I mean, they need our workers. Even in the European countries, they need our workers. They don't want to acknowledge their contribution. They engage students, where they can pay them half. certain number of hours so that their restaurants can run. So that they cannot, they don't need to take proper workers so that with the benefits that they have to give. In agricultural in Italy, they need workers, and the amnesty issue. So on the one hand, there is this need of the economy, but politically they have moved so right, even social democrat parties, that they are not prepared to accept that need immigration. And if I may recall, economists put it when the Syrians are going, economics said, let them come, let them work. That was the conservative paper, like economists, they made a story. My final point is with regard to the embassy. That is important. The role is important. I know of one country of a very important country where the mission told the worker that you have to have certificate, from a particular medical facility, and that particular medical facility was not recognized by the country concerned, and the test was not COVID. The test was general. When the reporters asked the ambassador that why is it you are asking this, he said, no, I really would like to make sure that our workers do not bring things. Although the civil aviation authorities in the country concerned said migrants can come back without the test. So that's the reality in some instances. That's where we live in. I'll stop there, and now I'll open up for discussion. First, I would like to ask William Goyce to come in. We are running short of time, but that's no indication for you, William. I think you do. And Dr. Piasiri, thank you for joining. My 1 or 2 points I would like to put into you, and you may think about them. The question that Rajan raised, I mean, what really do you think the future of these processes, to what extent they have been able to serve the migrants, and the relevance of GCM and other, voluntary non-binding processes? And do you feel, we should talk, I mean, this is where we should do the soul searching. My second point is, lost wages, what can be done about it? And my final point is, in general, what can be the future? Rajan is very optimistic about it, maybe perhaps rightly so, but what's your take on that? So now I will ask William, coordinator of Migrant Forum in Asia, the champion of institution in the region, of human rights and migrant rights.
Hi, thanks Abrar for this opportunity to speak. And let me begin by saying thank you to all the previous speakers as well for the very good insights. And just to, I think all the points that could be highlighted is in the Gulf region particularly, and across the world in different parts of the world in destination countries, there is a growing xenophobic and hate language kind of thing growing in social media and mainstream media. Attention to this. The Kuwait's Human Rights Society last week came out with a statement, in fact, and this was a Gulf organization that came out with a statement saying that there should be no hate speech at a time like this. We should not discriminate, and we are all in this together. So it was a good position taken up by a civil society organization in the Gulf countries. So this might be something we want to look at. A second point is, I know that the question about whether we should pay for repatriations, not pay for repatriations, documented, undocumented. I think the GCM and the Migrants in Countries in Crisis kind of framework brought out very clearly that at a time of crisis, the priority should be of saving lives, and then ask questions later. This might be something good also for our countries of origin to start treating our people as citizens, and we can see how to recover cost if we need to at a later stage. On the third point that is raised with regard to RCP's Colombo process, Abu Dhabi dialogue and things like that, I think this is only so weak because of the engagement of our governments in it. We have no champions in this. Colombo process was meant for countries of origin to come together and see what are the common issues and then push an agenda based on common priorities and goals. That has never happened. And it is because no country within be a champion. Everybody's afraid of losing our market. This is what I mean Rajan is talking about as well. So we might want to think of that. In terms of now, in terms of COVID, the GFMD discussions have started, and there are going to be 2 regional discussions in Asia on the GFMD. I wonder how much our governments are going to participate in that online discussion, whether we can even mobilize our governments to participate, and when they are in that discussion, to take the floor, to take the mic, to say something strong, because this year's GFMD themes is all about partnerships. So what is in our portfolio, what is in our perspective, an issue of partnership that we can offer as countries of origin to destination countries and make it work, make it operational. How many of our countries will dare to speak in such terms in building back better? And this is something, again, I think we will have to look at. There is a working group on crisis now within the GFMD, and Indonesia and Switzerland are chair and co-chair. How can we take, as countries of origin, how can we take our issues to the Indonesian co-chair and say, raise these issues up in times of crisis? This is what we have learned, and everything that previous speakers have said are very, very key important learning points. I'll highlight just one thing which is, I think, have become a big issue for us, and this is the whole thing of wage theft. A number of speakers have said about that, about workers not being paid salaries, and more especially about businesses taking this opportunity to fire workers who they have not been paying even before the COVID, but under the guise of the COVID, firing workers, laying them off, giving them conditions for future employment at lower rates, and all this scam that is going on and wage theft. I think we need to really pay attention to this. It is unfortunate that our countries are organizing repatriation flights and not giving our workers the opportunity to lodge a complaint, and then for the embassy to take the power of attorney to say, we will follow up this case for you. It is an issue of wage theft. Straightforward, and they should be able, because you're not talking about one worker going back, you're talking about thousands going back. And embassies should do this before they put it. Unfortunately, they are not gathering this data, and Nepal government in its repatriation form is even making workers sign saying, I have no claims. Obviously, like Ranjan said, if a worker is desperate to come home because of fear of dying in a foreign country and wants to, if he's going to die at home, he will sign that. He will sign, I have no claims, just to get on that repatriation flight. Why doesn't the embassy do its work? Are they afraid of the workload that they will have? Yes, they don't have capacity now, but if they do the registration of these cases and get the power of attorney, they can surely beef up the process afterwards. During the period of quarantine as well, they could do this kind of documentation of labor complaints and follow up. Most especially, why doesn't the Colombo process? We have called out for an urgent appeal, and we have sent it to the Colombo process secretariat as well, the MFA, and we have asked for the focal points of the Colombo process to send the appeal to them as well. But why don't the Colombo process countries come together and say that no worker should be repatriated without being given an unconditional opportunity to file a complaint with his mission or with authorities before boarding the flight, immigration authorities in the country of destination or labor authorities in the country of destination, to file a complaint with the assurance that this complaint will be looked into. And this data will be worked on, triangulated with the embassy, and cases will be heard. Why can't our countries of origin do that? Like Ranjan says, we have been seeing pendant on these remittances. It's time we gave them the honor, the dignity, and the respect that they deserve. We cannot continue to say, give them these platitudes of they are our heroes, and think of going back to a normal, and once again then looking at an economy of scale deployment. We have to build back better, and building back better will start with recovering the wages that have been lost in the millions. Thank you.
Thanks, William. I mean, I'm not going to sort of try to summarize for time's sake what you have said. Very, very pertinent and poignant and loaded. I will now go to you mentioned about dignity and respect. And over the last, as many number of years that we have been working, if there is one person whom I have come across in international bureaucracy, whatever little exposure that I have, this is one person who really cares about migrant workers, being an international bureaucrat, is Dr. Piyasari Vikramasekara, a great friend of migrant workers and a great friend of RMMRU. And it's my immense pleasure to invite him to reflect on a few issues that I have suggested if you wish to, or just any words that you would like to say. Thank you, Dr. Sekar.
Join. I had to start the video.
Yeah, please. We would like to see you.
Okay. Oh, sure. Am I there? No.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Video is not coming, yeah?
No, we're coming. We can see you.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, I joined just for this because I thought I will be incognito, but immediately you recognized me. So anyway, very excellent presentations. I listened all this time. Thank you very much. I learned a lot. I am not an expert in this field, so I am not sure whether I can directly answer all three questions you asked, but let me just reflect very quickly on some of the things. Yes, actually, we talked about heroes. Nasra mentioned and others also mentioned, migrants are the unsung heroes. So in Sri Lanka, we used to call them Rataviru, foreign heroes, people who came from abroad, heroes. And also during this COVID, we have heard of this term, essential workers, key workers, but unfortunately, at the same time, we also heard here that, there's a lot of stigma, especially after the crisis, and people are thinking of them as disease carriers and others. So we are really not giving them the dignity that William mentioned. So it is, as you mentioned at the beginning in your introduction, it's forced return. This word return migration also has got it's a very much abused term. So people, we call, voluntary return actually, which is already forced return even before the COVID, rejected asylum seekers and irregular migrants, being returned by the developed countries. And we give them, very good terms, AVR and others, assisted voluntary return, but they are really forced returns. Now this is much more. So one thing which has actually this crisis has brought out is, the lacuna in our social protection systems. Even in the Gulf, there was very limited social protection, social security from the 1980s, when Saudi Arabia abolished social security for comprehensive social security for migrant workers. It has become very diluted. Only injury compensation and medical health benefits, even that is not always, respected. So even unilaterally, the system of insurance. Now we were talking about lost wages. How do we recover that? Yes, it's very important. That these are recorded because many of these countries have what is called, this wage protection systems where things are on record. But I don't know. They must have broken down at the moment. But if they are on record, this is something we can go back on. And also our welfare funds, our insurance system should be able to, compensate for these, wage losses. At the moment, all these welfare funds have not been really efficiently been conducted. Third point, actually, you mentioned about this. Before that, these diasporas. I always maintain that, because in this high-level committee on the Indian diaspora, when they talked about the Gulf diaspora, they distinguish between the elite diaspora, skilled high-level diaspora, and also their numbers of the diaspora included all these temporary migrant workers also, low-skilled diaspora. So I always maintain that it's the duty of actually they have a moral obligation, this elite group in the Gulf, to help their poor brothers, which normally does not take place. But it's good if it is at least happening in a short way. About these processes, regional, bilateral, regional, and global processes, I have always been very skeptical about the Colombo process and the Abu Dhabi dialogue, because as Nasra said, this process never put critical issues of protection on the agenda. Look at the Abu Dhabi dialogue agenda. Have they ever discussed this kafala system, the sponsorship system, which is at the root of all these forced labor practices. Or workplace protection, how to protect workers there. No, they talk about more softer issues, pre-departure orientation, skills recognition, which are not so much, which is not a priority for the average migrant worker, or matching this using technology. So this is one thing. And also people have forgotten, countries have forgotten all their commitments at the global compact on migration. Otherwise, if you look at it, you have many recommendations which can address some of the issues. And GFMD chair this time is UAE. So this is a good opportunity actually for the governments of our countries, origin countries, to actually negotiate with them to raise some of these issues. Then, yes, what can be actually about the future? Yes, what can be done? As I mentioned, actually this is something I haven't really thought much about, but there's a big if. I think it's a matter of time also. Irudaya was optimistic. I listened to him at the this Cairo meeting also. But of course, some of these jobs have to continue because they are care work, essential work. All these have to continue. Countries have to recover. But it is a matter of time, So immediately in the short term, I think we cannot expect that demand will pick up, and also there's a lot of as Rajan very vividly put it, the corona, and the WHO also has said, corona will never go away, like Ebola and other things. Even if we find a vaccine, it will stay with us. So there will be certain issues. All countries will have more strict procedures, biosurveillance systems, and more health checks and admission procedures. So all this will take time. So I also would like to be optimistic, but for the countries to recover from the immediate this crisis and to get their systems going again, especially in the destination countries, will take time. So I am not that optimistic. I think I better stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Just to, many of us know you, but for others who do not know, he is a Cambridge University alumni, and he was a senior specialist at ILO with specialization in globalization, labor migration, skill migration, and rights of migrant workers, among other things. I have earlier said, please give your comments, and many of you have given. I'm sure the panelists have seen them. Since we need to wrap up, we have taken note, just for your information. Some questions were with regard to female labor migrants and others. This is something we'll discuss in details in our July webinar, which we promise will be no less engaging, hopefully. Also, we'll have another event in July on Rohingya refugees. Here now, I will give each of the panelists, 2 minutes each, to sort of any issues they feel like, and if they have seen the comments that are there, if they could pick them up, or just any last words they would like to come up with. Thank you. I will start now. Dr. Adhikari, since he was the first speaker. Dr. Adhikari, are you there? Okay, Ganesh.
Hello.
All right, yeah. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Abrar. It was a good opportunity for me to learn from all the panelists. I knew so many things. My basic understanding is that, well, this COVID has brought on the surface, some it has highlighted that we knew before, but I think many of the people, they have lost job is reality. There are new opportunities. For example, what I see here It's like there are new jobs for some people, especially those who are in cleaning. They have they are busy now as compared to others who have lost job. But again, migrants are put into the risky jobs. That is obvious. We have seen it before too. My main thing is like it has brought into surface that we barely noticed before, or we kind of saw it at the surface. Now it's a time to think over, especially when a crisis happens. So it's like a kind of a disaster. I mean, I used to teach disaster management too at the University of New South Wales. And in disasters, we make preparation. But in case of migration, we haven't expected any disasters, even though there were like a financial crisis and other problems. So I think some preparation are needed because disaster can happen in migration too. So preparation in terms of insurance, welfare, and other things should be more explicit now as compared to before. And then make insurance agencies or the government accountable. With regard to the opportunity in the future, I think looking here, I think there will be some crisis for some time, and we don't know. We don't know in immediate future. Maybe in long future it will come to the normal cycle, but in immediate future, I think there will be some problem. Also, this problem comes because the knowledge about COVID is not certain. The knowledge is evolving. The thing we know a month ago now, things have changed. So yes, this knowledge has evolved gradually. Then we might understand in a year or two how it is going to affect the economy and the people's lives and what will happen. So I think we need to wait and see. But I think we have to find out the critical areas where disasters like COVID can impact. And then I think our policy response can be strengthened in that area. So this is my only point, Abrar.
Thank you. Thank you. Before Rajanji has to leave, so I really would like to bring him forward so that, to make it convenient for him. Thank you, Professor Rajan.
Thanks, Abrar. I'll be there for another 10 minutes. I will also listen to other people if I have time, maybe another 15 minutes. But I just want to make 3 points, the final maybe 2 minutes point. One is that COVID made the migrants from hero to zeros. Now they are zero, no longer hero. It's something we should study about them. The second point, people never talk about them. They were not like fighting between India and Pakistan. They are fighting for poverty. They are fighting for unemployment. They are fighting their malnutrition. I think we should recognize their fight. They are only fight when the countries are fighting. When the army somebody dies, we celebrate it. I think we have to celebrate their sacrifice, their fight for poverty in their home, fighting for nutrition and fighting for unemployment. I think something we should respect the migrants. The third one, I think COVID also. I think COVID has a new change. There is also a class dimension. Because who is suffering because of the COVID? Not people like you and me. We are making our money. We are getting our salary. It is basically the poor migrants. So there is a class dimension by the COVID. The middle class is punishing the poor class. Middle class is punishing. I think there is something wrong because the middle class says, you middle class who are occupying the higher position, they are telling, please unlock, you be at home. But then I can be at home, still I can get some salary. But the poor migrant, they have to be on the road. So I think there is a class dimension that has been brought forth by the COVID. I'll stop here. Thank you, Abrar. I'll be there for another 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. We plan to finish it by then. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ganesh Gurung. Ganeshi?
Are you listening me?
Yes, very much. 2 minutes. Yeah.
there are a few questions regarding gender, and so in Nepali case, the most of the women housemaids are more vulnerable now. Either they are sent back, they are in the process of sending back, or they are kept in the houses in more stricter way. They have earlier they may have 1 day off to go out, and now they don't have that chance to go out because the owner wants strictly inside the house, and that situation has created them more vulnerable. And interestingly, one case, there was a question that I responded her individually. There were some women brought back from Nepali women were brought back from Kuwait, and most of the women were pregnant. Interestingly, in Nepali media, there was a big noise and even in social media, there was a big blame to them. These are all illegal pregnancy. But when we did inquire about that, most of the ladies who were pregnant had gone to meet their husbands, and they were pregnant because of their husbands were there. So look at the stigma that we have in mind. These women have illegal pregnancy. So my take in this issue is women housemates are more vulnerable than earlier because of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. On that point, the other day at a webinar of University of Cairo, I think I heard that that in one of the well-off Middle Eastern country, I think it was in Lebanon, their house owners were leaving the town for their country residents to save from COVID, to keep themselves safe from COVID. But they left the female migrants in town without any protection, and as a result, many of them became very, very vulnerable. So at that kind of scenario, and other point that we were told is, whatever the outcome may be, eventually, in all likelihood, female labor migration flow will not drop, the demand will not drop, and certainly, and that calls for sort of more engaging, more engagement on the protection issues of female migrants. If we really have to send workers, if opportunities exist in future, then certainly they have to be sent in a much more protected form. That would be my sort of humble suggestion. Now I come to Mr. Ruhunage. Thank you, Ganesh. Mr. Ruhunage, are you there? Okay. Can Professor Nasra Shah, if you could come in, Mr. Ruhunage, if he joins us, or maybe he has got connection issues. Yeah, Professor Nasra Shah.
Yeah, okay. Great exchanges. I want to make 2 points. One is with regard to the need to collect metadata on return migration. Because what my work on South Asia tells me is that while we collect fairly good data on annual outflows of workers, all of our countries have set up fairly good systems to capture this. But in terms of return migration, that was a weak area. It continues to be a weak area. And therefore, this was an opportunity, or perhaps still is an opportunity, to document who these people are, what kind of a situation they came back in, whether wages are owed, and the whole picture of their return. Could be, data could be collected, but I'm not sure whether it's actually being done. The second point is with regard to with regard to, I agree with Rajan that once things settle down a bit, there will be this demand. The demand, particularly in the Gulf countries for workers, is not going away anywhere. It will diminish, but it's still going to be there, and for low-skilled workers included. So one of the things that probably is going to happen is that the recruitment costs, which have been very high from countries like ours, may go up further. And that's a concern that I think we should keep in mind for future, and we should keep an eye on that. Thank you. Those are the 2 points that I wanted to make.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Shah. Do we have Mr. Ruhunage? I guess he may have connection issues.
I think Ruhunage is here. Please, can you please unmute yourself?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Zahid. Mr. Ruhunage, can you please unmute yourself? Okay, what I will do is I'll take 2 minutes, and then we can come back to Mr. Ruhunage if he comes back, just to make use of the time. Obviously, it has been a rich discussion, and I will not dare to sum it up. There are a few points that I think that came for discussion, that we should, we feel that return should be suspended. This is something UN Forum also said, that suspend forced returns during pandemic. And that is something we feel in order to protect the health of migrants and uphold their human rights irrespective of their status. Second issue is ensure all migrants, irrespective of their status, have access to tests and treatment of COVID-19 without discrimination. In temporary shelters before their repatriation, they should be housed in accommodation that ensure safety as well as dignity. The kafala system is something also for countries of destination, that needs to be looked into. And there was a suggestion also to put it to abeyance for the time being, so that lives can be saved, migrants could be saved. Next issue is not to take, urge the countries not to take advantage of pandemic through exerting pressure on some of the countries of origin, and to de-link any negotiation on repatriation arrangement with future labor opportunities, labor market opportunities. And also to urge them to ensure all returning migrants are paid their outstanding wages, benefits, and other dues before they are repatriated. If that is not possible, due to prevailing condition, they should commit to ensure that employers settle all outstanding claims as soon as the situation permits, and create a justice mechanism for that. And if migrant workers are to be returned, the cost of flight should be borne by the company or the destination countries. That's something I think needs discussion. And the countries of origin, a few. Also, registration of all migrants, preferably before they start their journey, in temporary shelters in countries of destination, or if not, in quarantine facilities in home country, that documents their unpaid wages and other benefits. Then negotiate with countries of destination that workers can lodge claims for reimbursement of their lost wages once situation improves, and seek legal redress. And finally, develop strategies to ensure that migrants return in safe and dignified condition. They should engage migrants and civil society's active participation in charting out such strategies. So these are some of the things we felt that came, and in terms of, if we prepare a policy brief, these are some of the points I think we'll highlight. But certainly, as I said, with the caveat that it did not, sort of contain the rich discussion that we had and many other important suggestions that were made. And now I would like to come to Mr. Ruhunage. Thank you, Mr. Ruhunage. You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Ruhunage.
Now, what is the position?
We're fine.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Now fine, no? Yes.
Yeah.
So, after hearing to all these stories, I have a reasonable fear that these lower salaries will prevail in future also, and will become a norm in the systems of Gulf jobs, because now we have stories I read a story in Gulf News yesterday, and it said the temporary salary cut has been widely accepted condition by the workers who have no choice but to take it or leave it. Seems to be the policy adopted by the employers. So, I mean, this situation has become very worse. I mean, there's another study carried out by Gulf Talents, the UAE famous recruiting agency. They say job aspirants now consent for for lower salaries than what they earlier earned from the same job. So now it is said several occupations imposed a salary cut. Several employers imposed a salary cut. These are two positions I got from yesterday's websites. So now this seems to be, I mean, very bad as far as the salaries are concerned in the future scenario. Sometimes the employers, the companies will try to keep these low salaries for future engagements also, migrant workers. So therefore, I mean, the authorities, the policymakers should have a kind of serious attention about this low wages and reduction of salaries. That is one point I have to finally mention. Thank you very much, Dr. Abrar.
Thank you. Dr. Piasiri or William, any last point? Either of you? I'm sure audience would be happy to listen to you.
Well, yeah, if I may come in, yeah. The only point is I want to actually support Nasra's position. I wanted to mention that earlier, yeah, about this data. Because no country monitors return migration. This has been a very big point, you know, but this crisis has highlighted, you know, how important that is. So what we need is not just the numbers, but also the profile. What all their demographic facts, and also under what conditions they returned. I mean, then this kind of thing should be built into the, you know, the data collection system. That's all I would add at this point. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. William, are you there or?
Yes, Abrar, I'll just say I think it would be great if all the South Asian countries actually calculated how much wages have been, how much wage theft has happened, how many workers have come back without their wages, and what is that amount, so that we can correct the World Bank figures which says 20% drop in remittances. It will be much more if you include the wage theft that is lost in terms of potential remittances. And this way we can challenge even the World Bank figures. And South Asian countries should do a collective process of identifying that numbers, which will be in millions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm not going to name names. Thank everyone, the panelists and the participants. As of now, I can see a few minutes ago, it was 50 odd people, and it started off with 80 odd, maybe touching 90. And mind you, we are live in Facebook, so many others are seeing it through the Facebook. And thank you for your kind participation. And we, in future, in the next month, two things we have identified. One is on female migrant workers, particularly domestic workers that we will discuss. The second issue on the Rohingya refugees. We are yet to finalize the exact topic, you know, and certainly we'll keep you informed. As I requested others, please send your email addresses if you're interested to be informed about our future programs. We all, as you have heard, these are not only reputed academics, you know, international civil servants and, you know, researchers. These are essentially people with heart in the right place, and that has put them together. And all of us sort of belong to the South Asia Migration Resource Network that we set up some years ago. Somewhat became somewhat slack now, but we feel the urge that this is the time for us to again to redo that work and work collectively under some form of loose sort of framework. And we certainly believe that with your support and cooperation, we will be able to, you know, impress on our government the value that we can add in this difficult time when they frame policies with regard to the migrant workers, and also to exert pressure on countries of destination in our own ways, and also international organizations and processes, you know, which at times perhaps lose their way or need reminding. So in that respect, I think it was rich discussion. and we certainly believe that we'll follow it up on that. And my final, the clarion call that stand is, let us all, join together to build back better for the migrant workers, not only of our region, but of entire world. Thank you ever so much. I bring an end to this session. Thank you.